All right, thanks for joining in for this lesson on internet technologies. Uh, so let's jump to the learning outcomes of this lesson. You're supposed to describe what is the internet and what is an ISP and what is an IP address. Describe the differences between IP address and MAC address. Describe the purpose of a web browser. So maybe when I ask you what is the internet, you tell me that we have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have even Skype and so on. In fact, this is not the internet. These are services that are provided through the internet. Like Facebook is one service that is used for social networking, Skype for video conferencing. And even Google, which is a search engine, is not the internet. To understand the concept of internet, you must understand how the internet works itself. We need to know how networks work first. So let's say you have a computer and you want to share information with another computer, maybe using some wireless connection like Bluetooth or wired connection. This is another computer connected. And all of those four computers, they are connected to one another for information sharing. Let's say I have a file and this has to be shared across all those devices or computers. These computers connected to one another is known as a network, a very small network. Now imagine in one building you can have such type of network connected. Now in another building you will have another type of network connected. All of these networks will be connected to one another, which then form a very large network. And this very large network is what we call the internet. So as such, a network is a number of computers linked together to allow sharing of resources. Maybe four computers connected to one another, and all of them they are sharing resources. When resources, I mean devices or files. As such, files can be an image file, a music, and so on. Devices can be a printer. Now, you need to know the definition of the internet. You don't need to copy those notes. I will send you the slides afterward, just follow for now. The internet is a worldwide system of computer networks and computers. All of these computers forming part of small networks, they are connected to one another to form one of the largest network known as the internet. Now, all computers attached to the internet can communicate with each other, providing a number of rules and protocols are adhered to. You can't just communicate without any rules. When you communicate with your friend, you both need to come with an agreement that you're going to speak a specific language so that both of you can understand. So this becomes a rule. So all computers connected in networks must adhere to a protocol. We're going to see protocol later on, what are protocol, but for now just understand that internet is what? It is the largest network ever possible. How is it formed? It forms using smaller networks in different buildings, in different regions, in different countries to form the internet. Now, if you look at the globe here, you're going to see networks all around the world connected to one another, which form the whole internet. Now, the internet contain networks, yes, but it also contain what is known as servers. For example, Google has its server, a Google server, okay, which allows you to search information as quickly as possible. YouTube has its own server, which stores video for you. So servers, devices, computers, all of these form part of the internet. Now, does it mean that if you have a computer, you're connected to the internet? No. You may have a computer at your place, but you can't be connected to the internet. There must be a link. Okay? When I say a link, this is your device. which is here, this device must be connected to this whole network here. Now, how is it possible? It's possible using an ISP. An ISP is an internet service provider. Okay, so an internet service provider is like Mighty or MTEL or MTML. All of these are internet service providers. What are internet service providers? These are companies that provide a user with access to the internet. Once you have the internet, once you have services from an internet service provider, you will have what is known as an IP address, and using that same IP address, you will be able to connect to the largest network known as the internet. Obviously, it's not free. You pay a monthly fee for which you are charged for that service. So yes, the internet is the largest network, but you just don't get access to the internet. To be connected, you'll have to pay for fees of services provided with an internet service provider. Now, like I said, when you are going to sign an agreement with your internet service provider, you are given an IP address. What is an IP address? It's a unique address known as an Internet Protocol address or the IP address. It's a 32-bit number, which is usually written in the form 109.108.158.1. So as you can see, there are 4 parts in this protocol: 109, 108, 158.1. So when you are going to make an agreement with your internet service provider, you're provided with a live box for internet connection. But based on that live box, you're also provided with an IP address. So IP address will allow you to have a unique address where you're on the internet, when you are connected to the internet. Now, since it is 32-bit, it means that I can use 8-bit here, 8 zeros and 1, 8 zeros and 1s, 8 zeros and 1, and this one also 8 zeros and 1s. Now, how do you find what is my IP address? Is IP address fixed for every device in the network? No. Since it is unique, okay, means each devices, they will have a unique address. Now, point to note that when you have a live box, there are certain, this is a denary, this is a denary representation. As this can be, you take 109, you convert it to 8 bits, you will have 8 zeros and 1s, combination of 8 zeros and 1s. Now, this IP address, as you can see, is dependent upon the internet service provider. Part of it will remain fixed. Maybe let's say the first 3 will remain fixed, only the last part will change. For example, the first device will have 109.108.158.1. The other one, this will change. This will become 2 now. It goes on like this. Now, how do you find your IP address from your computer? Let's look at it now. Okay. Okay. On your Windows machine, you have normally an application known as a software, or we call it a command prompt. Okay. It's a small application known as command prompt. It is used by server administrators and so on, Windows system administrators. So for my machine, if I need to find out my IP address, I just type ipconfig. Okay. As you can see from this Windows screen, I have an IPv4 address which is 198.168.100.44. Okay, and yes, there is a possibility to know your MAC address. Remember, MAC address is normally related to your network interface card. But for now, as you can see, we have an IPv4 address. Now you will see I have also an IPv6 address. What is an IPv6 address? Since all devices in a network have a unique address, with time what is happening, these devices are taking most of the IPv4 addresses. So obviously, with time, we will not be using IPv4 addresses. We are shifting to IPv6 addresses because now more devices are connected, and with 32-bit, it's not possible to get a unique IP address for each one of us. Now, the IP address, where does it come from? It's a home computer, which is given an IP address when it connects to the internet. It is assigned by the ISP and is unique for that particular internet session. Okay? The only IP addresses that remain fairly unchanged are web servers. Why web servers? When you type a URL on your browser, www.google.mu, you'll see these are only words, but in fact they are not words. They are a representation of a specific IP address. Okay? The address that you type, it's human readable, but behind it, it's an address, an IP address of a web server that you're communicating. How does it happen? Later on, when we do a topic on security, you will understand the concept of a DNS server. But for now, just remember, web servers are the only type of computer whose IP address are not changed. Now, I've said IP address gives a location of a device on the internet, whereas MAC address, it identifies a device connected to the internet. This is a difference. You may get a question like this. What is the difference between an IP address and a MAC address? IP address is a location of a device where it is found. Whereas MAC address, it can tell us which device we're talking about that is connected to the internet. Before we jump to web browsers, let me do a recap of what we have studied. Okay? So we have studied first a network allow sharing of files with one another. This is a very small and simple network. Now, all of these networks, when they are connected around the world, you have a diagram like this, which form the internet. The internet is the largest network with all the computers. Now, to get access to the internet, you need what is known as an ISP, an internet service provider. What is the role of an ISP? The role of an ISP is to allocate you an IP address based on a fee that you pay. Okay. Now, what is an IP address? It's a unique address that your computer have for a particular internet session, and it's in the form of a 32-bit number. Please be very attentive about the definition of an IP address, the definition of the internet, differences between IP address and MAC address, because you never know when you will have a theoretical question. What is an IP address? Describe the role of an IP address in using the internet. Okay, now let's come to the concept of web browsers. A web browser is a software which allows a user to display a web page on their computer screen. Web browsers interpret or translate the HTML code from website. What are HTML codes? This we will follow in coming sessions in a few minutes. But just know that it's a software for viewing websites on your computer. We all know about it, but still when you ask a definition of a web browser, you will not be possible. You will find it difficult to write the definition. So a web browser is a software to view web pages, but also it interpret or translate the HTML code from website. Okay, what are HTML codes? These are codes written by a web developer to create a website. And a web browser, what it does, it translates these HTML codes from the website to do a web page. Now, these, as you can see, these are HTML codes, the way they are written. You don't need to remember HTML codes. I'm just showing you a simple table that has been created in HTML. It consists of cars, it consists of tables, of different background color. Here you see we have a little CSS, which we'll study in the coming lessons. Now let's come to URL. URL, the full meaning of URL is Uniform Resource Locator. This is a URL that you normally type on the screen. Now, a URL is divided into three different parts. First, the HTTP is a protocol. It will give you a URL in exam and ask you what is a protocol. So the way to look at protocol is before the www you have the protocol. Therefore, the answer for the protocol is HTTP. Okay, we'll study about protocol later on. And the web server name is the whole lot here that you see after the protocol. The web server name becomes www.holdereducation.co.uk, and whatever follows after the web server name becomes a file name. Okay, you may be given a URL in the examination and it asks you for the protocol. It asks you for the web server name and it asks you for the file name.